Welcome to the Rancher Mike YouTube channel. If this is your first time visiting, thanks for joining me today. And if you are a returning subscriber, welcome back. Today I'm going to be giving a true review of the Magic Mill food dehydrator that you see next to me. For those of you who are familiar with my videos, I'm sure you've seen my mealworm colony, and you know that I use it to provide an extra source of protein for my chickens. Well, my mealworm colony is going so well right now that I'm generating thousands and thousands of excess mealworms, and my chickens just can't keep up. So I'm having to store the excess mealworms in the refrigerator to preserve them, and it's getting kind of cramped in there. So it prompted me to do some research to see if there were other solutions for preserving the mealworms without spoiling, and what I came up with were three different options. The first option was to try and dehydrate the mealworms in the oven in my house. Now, as you can see in this video, I put them on some trays, put the oven on the lowest setting, left it in there for several hours, and periodically changed the mealworms around to kind of try and get them on different sides. And in the end, the mealworms did seem to dry out fairly well. They weren't crispy, but they were not really damp. So I think they might preserve okay out in my garage in the normal ambient temperatures, but it made my kitchen smell pretty fragrant in the process, and I thought, I'm not doing that again. So I decided to look into other options, and I came across freeze dryers. Now, freeze dryers are fantastic pieces of equipment from what I can tell. They reduce the moisture content in food sufficiently well that you can store that food for years and years at normal temperatures, and then at the end you can rehydrate it and you haven't lost any food quality or taste. But as you can imagine, those freeze dryers come with a pretty hefty price tag in the thousands of dollars, and they also require you to have certain infrastructure in place to remove the moisture from the system, and it just wasn't something that I wanted to fuss with at this point. So I finally settled on dehydrators. This particular model caught my eye because it's got enough space on the inside that I can do multiple trays of mealworms at the same time, and it also has these really nifty hangers that I can use to hang meat and make jerky. I've always wanted to make jerky for myself, but also I've got a couple of really finicky dogs, and right now the only treats that they like are these really expensive chicken jerky strips from the store. So I thought, rather than continuing to buy those jerky strips, I might try to make them myself. With all that said, I have never used a food dehydrator before, so I don't know what I'm in for, but I like the fact that it's gonna be in my garage, so if it smells funky, my garage might smell a little funky, but not my house. And the temperatures on this unit can get so low that hopefully the mealworms won't burn before they actually dry out. And also it'll allow me to make jerky. And before I forget, I should also mention that this unit was under $200 on Amazon. So the price is right, but let's go ahead and see if it actually works as advertised. With this particular unit, in addition to the instruction manual, you also get a dehydrator cookbook, which I thought was pretty cool. You get the wire rack for making jerky, a fine mesh tray for making fruit leather. You actually get 2 polypropylene trays. I thought it was just one, but they were nested pretty tightly. You also get the skewers for the jerky hanger, and you get 10 stainless steel mesh trays and 2 silicone mitts. All right, now that we have it unboxed, I can tell you that it feels very light, which is good in terms of its weight, but, you know, it seems like everything is plastic. The sides are plastic. So, you know, I assume for these lower temperatures, it's okay, but gives me a little bit of concern that maybe it might melt if it's used for a prolonged period of time, but I guess we'll find out. It does come with these 10 different trays, which I think is great, and it looks like these just slide into these slots here, like so. So I've got lots of different slots to use with my mealworms when I'm dehydrating them, but you can see that the mealworms are going to fall through if I put them on this tray. So I'm going to have to use this particular tray. It won't fit on these sliders. It's not going to catch on the lip. So I'm going to have to use it in conjunction with one of these trays like that. It's got a little bit of a well in here, so the mealworms shouldn't fall off the sides. But again, it only comes with one of these. So my hope of doing multiple trays of mealworms at the same time is not going to come to fruition today. I'm sure you could probably buy more of these, but that would have to be another expense on top of the $200 for this unit. So that's a ding right there. But, you know, like I said, let's continue to use it and see how it works in terms of actually dehydrating the mealworms. I placed the unit on a shelf that I had prepared prior and turned it on. You can see it sets itself to 165 degrees Fahrenheit for 10 hours automatically. While the unit heated up, I washed the polypropylene tray and the stainless steel wire mesh rack thoroughly, and then went ahead and put them back in the unit to dry out. In the meantime, I took a batch of mealworms from the fridge and placed them in the freezer to euthanize them before adding them to the unit. One thing that I wanted to do was to check the temperature of the unit both inside and outside. This is just a temperature gun that I bought online. Again, purchased it on Amazon. First of all, let's calibrate the room. Let's go ahead and hit the wall here and see what it says. It says it's about 80 degrees in here. Let's try it over here. You can see it puts two little infrared dots on the wall, and that helps it to, you know, get a reading from the surface. It says it's about 81 degrees, which sounds about right. So now let's hit the top of this unit, 136.4 thereabouts degrees. Let's hit the side here. It's a little bit cooler. Let's hit the side here. A little bit cooler as well. It might not get the accurate reading on the front here, but it's saying on this black part about 120. Now let's open this up. You can see it's been on for about a little under an hour. So it's saying 170 and it's registering 165. So it's a little bit warmer inside than what it's showing on the dashboard here. But the good news is this is the highest temperature setting for this unit. And I can tell you that the top here to the touch feels warm, but I can keep my hand on there and I'm not having to take it off, you know, immediately. So I'm not too worried. You know, the top of the shelf up here doesn't feel too warm. The shelves down here don't feel warm at all. So I feel comfortable that this unit in this space will be okay. And I might even lower the temperature depending on how the results come out with these mealworms and with this jerky. I'm going to use one of these nifty silicone mitts that come with the unit to take out the tray here. Close the door. I am going to put this over here. The mealworms that I had in the freezer are now frozen, so I'm going to go ahead and put them on the tray. Now you see that it's set for that 165, which we measured about 170 or a little bit less, and it's set for 9 hours. So I'm going to give it 9 hours and see how the mealworms do, and I'll come back and check on them, and we'll see if they look any better than the ones that I did in my oven in my house. When I checked on the mealworms after 9 hours, they were not yet fully dehydrated, so I lowered the temperature but increased the time to keep them in there for a full 24 hours. All right, as you can see, we're counting down to the last 20 minutes of the 24-hour cycle that the mealworms have been on, and this is what they look like. Not too different than the ones that I did in my conventional oven, but I will say I don't notice a distinct smell, and they seem a lot crispier than they did in my oven. They seem to break apart. See how that broke in half pretty easily? So they're a little bit more brittle, which is what I was hoping for, versus you know, kind of where they would just bend a little bit. And so I'm hopeful that they will work for my chickens. I also wanted to show you the temperatures again, so we'll do a quick one here on the outside. You can see it's 102 on top, 114, so it's a lot lower than it was when the setting was at 165. Over here, 101, and on this side, we're getting about 99. So it's considerably cooler, even to the touch. I can put my hand on here. Again, this has been operating for 24 hours. It doesn't feel uncomfortable at all. It just feels like a nice soothing warmth here. Same on the side. I'm not noticing any bowing. of the unit from the 24-hour cycle that this has been on, so that's good. Let's take a temperature inside here. Let's get all the way to the back here. That says 144 on the back side, but if I go to the very back of the tray, it says 131. So, you know, I wanted to try and dehydrate these at a little bit lower temperature to see if they wouldn't blacken so much. It seems that the mealworms are just going to blacken no matter what you do when you're using a dehydrator or using a conventional oven. So that much, I think, is just normal. But I am pleased that these seem a lot crispier. And again, because the temperature was lowered, I can pull this out without the silicone mitt, and it's not uncomfortable to the touch. All right, so as far as dehydrating the mealworms, I think the Magic Meal did a really good job. Some of the positives about this unit are it's really quiet. I mean, right now it's on still, and it sounds about the level of a dehumidifier in your house. So this thing could be used in a home without any problem. I also did not notice any smells coming off of the mealworms that were being dehydrated, so I don't know why my conventional oven had such a weird smell when they were being dehydrated in the house, but this unit doesn't seem to have that issue, or at least this batch of mealworms doesn't seem to have that issue. And I think it did a decent job of driving off the moisture from the mealworms, such that the result was that I got crispier dehydrated worms instead of the ones that I did in my oven, though admittedly if I had left them in my conventional oven longer, I'm sure they would have crisped up as well. On the downside, the unit is all plastic on the exterior, so that concerns me with extended use if it's going to start to warp or bow out because there is no metal structure holding those sides in. But when I did place it at the highest temperature of 165 degrees Fahrenheit, I didn't notice any issues, but again, that was only for about an hour or so that I had it. Only time will tell if that's going to be a problem or not. Also, I think that the buttons you can only adjust in increments of 30 minutes at a time on the time and 5 degrees Fahrenheit on temperature, so I wish there was a little bit more of a fine tune on that, but that's more of a nit. I do also wish that Magic Meal offered its own trays that you could either buy or that they would provide with this unit, the plastic trays, and I was not able to find any Magic Meal polypropylene trays on Amazon. I had to actually buy another brand to fill up the rest of those shelves, and I'll put a link to that below so that you can see what I was able to find. But my suggestion would be to Magic Meal that if you're going to provide a 10 tray unit, that you also provide the ability to get 10 polypropylene trays as well. All said, I think it worked fairly well, but again, the proof is going to be whether my chickens will actually eat the resulting dehydrated mealworms. So let me go take some out there and let's see what happens. There you have it. It looks like my chickens approve. So given all of the pros and cons of the Magic Meal food dehydrator, I would still give it a score of 3.5 in terms of its ability to dehydrate mealworms. I still think that's a very respectable score, but it does have some limitations that I've already mentioned. But we have yet to put the machine through its paces in terms of its ability to make jerky. So let's go ahead and get after it. First thing I'm going to do is take out the metal tray that was used for the mealworms. I'm going to set that aside, hit start, and then hit the time temp button. You can see that that's flashing now. I'm going to go to 155 and hit it one more time. Now the hours is flashing, and I'm going to go down to 5 hours. All right, I've got my skewers ready. I have a foil-lined pan to transport those skewers to the garage once the meat is on them. I have a cutting board and my knife and my chicken breasts. I put these chicken breasts in the freezer so that they would firm up a little bit so that it'll be easier for me to slice them. And as you can see, I purchased these for $1.99 a pound. Now, even if the chicken breasts shrink in size by 50% in the dehydrator, it will still be cheaper by about $3 a pound than what I'm buying at the store currently for my dogs. So with that said, let me go ahead and open this up and let's get to slicing. Whenever I'm handling raw meat, I do like to use gloves, in this case disposable vinyl gloves, so I put a pair on. I then proceeded to start to slice the chicken I went ahead and sliced it in about 1/4 inch strips so that I could get a lot of different pieces for my dogs. And I put about 10 to 15 slices per skewer. Now you need to make sure that when you are skewering the chicken or whatever meat you're going to use, that you put it sufficiently high up so that it doesn't fall off the skewer in the unit. One thing that was a little tricky was putting the skewers on the rack. Since the rack doesn't have any kind of holder, you can see that I kind of braced it against my midsection, which was a little less than ideal. Didn't allow me the ability to kind of separate the strips out very well. So that would be one thing I would suggest to the folks at Magic Mill, is to provide a holder for the rack. After putting the rack in the unit, I decided to place a polypropylene tray underneath to catch any drippings. With a little over an hour left in the jerky making process, I decided to try and separate the strips with my fingers as best as I could. This was also a little tricky because I couldn't slide the rack all the way out, but I managed to do okay. At the end of 5 hours, I took out the chicken strips and they appeared to be fairly dry, so I put them on a new sheet with foil and started to remove them from the skewers. Here you can see that the strips were dehydrated but yet still tender as compared to the store-bought one that I show you here that was really brittle. I then decided to weigh the chicken strips to see how much mass was lost in the dehydration process.
And it looks like we are at 2 pounds and 5 ounces. So a little bit less than 2.5 pounds, almost half of the original weight of the chicken. So this is roughly going to be about, let's call it $4 a pound. And at that rate, I am still better off than the store-bought jerky, which is $8 a pound. But just as with the dried mealworms, the real test is whether the end consumer likes the product. And the end consumer in this case is my dogs. So let me call them in here. Come here, Flocka. Come here, buddy. Well, and Flocka always takes hers outside to eat, so I know that she's enjoying it. Let's try one more piece here. All right, so there you have it. My dogs really enjoyed the chicken jerky that I just made in the Magic Mill Food Dehydrator. Based on the performance of this dehydrator in making jerky, it was my first time making any kind of jerky whatsoever. And just from the smell of it, it smelled actually pretty good. I didn't put any spices or anything, but it smelled like dried chicken strips. And I wanted to taste it, but I thought, better leave those for the dogs. But I think that it performed really, really well. And I think for making jerky, I would give this 4.5 stars. So if you average that with the 3.5 stars for making dehydrated mealworms, I think this is a solid 4-star product. All right, if you've enjoyed this video, I hope you'll go and smash that like button and also subscribe to my channel and ring the bell so you'll be notified of future videos. I try to release these true reviews every so often, and I also do a lot of other videos about life out here on my ranch. So check it out, and if you have a particular video that you would like to see, drop a comment below. I promise I read all of them and try to get back to you as soon as I can. And if I can do a video that you've requested, I'll even give you a shout out. So until next time, take care.